Let's get to the word this morning. Acts chapter 5. We've been here for almost 2 months now, but we've had guest speakers, different things, conferences, so it's been jumped back and forth. So I want to go back to Acts 5 just for a moment, just to refresh ourselves. So grab your Bibles, Acts chapter 5. I want to take you to a couple of scriptures. Then I'm just going to talk with you because there's something that I really feel God wants to share with us and strengthen us with today. And so I'm just going to kind of talk off my heart and maybe ramble a little bit on some things, because we want to see about getting strong here as a church. You've been doing a lot of standing, so I know you're going to honor God's word even though you're sitting. Here we go. Acts chapter 5, verse 12. Now many signs and wonders were regularly done among the people by the hands of the apostles. And they were all together in Solomon's portico. None of the rest dared join them, but the people held them in high esteem. Just prior to this, Ananias and Sapphira were killed because they lied regarding an offering. Verse 14, and more than ever, believers were added to the Lord. It was so strange. People die in the church and more people come. I mean, today that scares people off. If people die at the offering time and they hear that doesn't work very good for church growth. Back then, people took God more seriously. And so this is what's kind of happening here. And more than ever, after all this happened, believers were added to the Lord, multitudes of both men and women, and then something supernatural began to happen. As these multitudes came, they even carried out the sick into the streets and laid them on cots and mats, that as Peter came by, at least his shadow might fall on some of them. And the people also gathered from the towns around Jerusalem, bringing the sick and those afflicted with unclean spirits, and they were all healed. I read this passage in August while at the cottage, and when I saw that about Peter's shadow, I realized something. I realized that there's a shadow that can be cast from our lives, that when people come underneath it, God can touch them. All through scriptures, you see about the shadow. I'm going to go to Psalm 91 in just a minute to show you where that shadow originates. But God casts a shadow over life. We can live within his shadow. And when that shadow's over us, we shadow over others. And that shadow from which we're shadowed with touches others. And in this case, people were getting healed supernaturally, incredibly. And so we began a quest since then about having a shadow of the miraculous overdwelling place, so that every person who comes in touches and senses and tastes the presence of God, and then begins to move into a supernatural life. How many know you get in the presence of God, supernatural stuff's going to start to happen? When you begin to move into the presence of God and pursue him, supernatural things are going to happen. And so we're saying we want that over this church. We want a culture, we want an atmosphere where there's a shadow over our church, the shadow of the Almighty. And when we come under that shadow, then we begin to live in his presence, and we cast a shadow, and all who come in that shadow begin to experience God and begin to experience his presence, and then begin to experience a supernatural change in life. So we want a culture of the miraculous, a shadow of the miraculous over us. Now, I've asked you if you want that, and everybody says, yes, we do. And so we ended a while back by preaching a message called Living a Supernatural Lifestyle, because sometimes we think the only miracles that happen are when people get healed. And that's a miracle, but there's more than that. There's a lot. We don't want to just have healing. We want that, but we want all of it. We want miraculous things happening all over the place. People getting jobs supernaturally, that's miraculous. Being blessed, that's miraculous when it comes out of God's divine glory. All sorts of means. When you help encourage somebody, you get a prophetic word. What happened this morning for Megan and for Rihanna, that's prophetic. That comes from a supernatural gift of the Spirit. I didn't make those things up, I hope. They made sense? They made sense? So it was God speaking. I didn't mean hope, because I believe God speaks, but well, that's kind of part of you. You're hoping that you heard from God. And then that's supernatural to be able to speak over somebody's life in that sense, and be encouraged so strongly that God is hearing. When Reuben was here last Sunday night, and our friend Mark Redner was praying over you, were being moved powerfully by God, correct? Supernatural. But sometimes you go to your neighbor and pray for something, for a job, and they get jobs. A very quick testimony. After the day after the service last week, Mark Redner's wife, Kawanda, she messaged me Monday evening and said, you got to hear the story. Her uncle was in the hospital. Her aunt was, they're unbelievers to this day, not anymore, but they were till Monday. And Kawanda's mother had tried so hard to talk with her aunt and just wasn't happening. That day, they prayed and they got an answer. And her mother said on Monday, because God did that, I now believe, after 50 years of being spoken by the Lord, that last Monday, that's supernatural. I mean, it was one thing prayed for within an hour. These are things that we want, and you guys all want it. You're all believing for it. You're all agreeing for it. You all want it. And so we want to go after this culture of the supernatural. So having said that, let's go now to Psalms 91. Would you do that very quickly? And I'm going to launch into really what I want to talk about very quickly this morning. You're saying, that wasn't it? Psalm 91, I'm just going to read verse 1 and 2. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High, the presence of God, will abide in the shadow, there it is, the shadow of the Almighty. Now you can say it's a figure of speech. I'm telling you, it's a reality. God can shadow you. He goes on to say, I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. So I want to talk to you briefly, just a little bit, about this whole aspect of God, my refuge. God, my refuge. And I don't know if I hear or ever heard people talking about this that much, but God, my refuge. Now, let me preface why I want to talk about this. I began to read in Psalms just for my personal time, and I began to read through Psalms, and as you go through, you'll see over and over, David talks about a refuge place. A place where he would go, a refuge where he could run to. And there was a place that he could go when the storm was all around. He could hide in this refuge place, and he could be safe. And he talks about it. I mean, chapter after chapter, he would talk about this stronghold of a refuge would hold me. And David was very much saying that there was a lot of people against me. There was a lot of people trying to harm me and speaking bad against me and speaking terrible things about me. But he said, I will run to the refuge, to my God, and it would be a refuge for me. And so I'm reading this for a number of chapters, and then also I remembered Psalm 91. It says that those who dwell in the shelter of the Most High have a refuge. They have a refuge. Those who dwell in the shelter of the Most High actually have a refuge that they can run to, that they can go to, and they can be safe. Now, that sounds pretty exciting, doesn't it? But I want to give you the context of why. So I want everybody to sit on the edge of your seat, because I want to speak to you about what I think is so, so important. Here it is. We want to live, and I ended a few weeks ago by saying we want to live within a lifestyle of the miraculous. And pretty much everybody in church said, I want that. But I've seen something happen. I've seen people get into this place where they so want the supernatural. They so want the miraculous, but then the enemy comes in like a flood. Challenges come their way. Situations get difficult at work. Family things happen. Illnesses come along. And pretty soon, this desire for the supernatural is getting squashed by the challenges of life. And if it's not the challenge of life, then what happens is the enemy will come in and add his pain to the challenge of life, and he will squash it. And here's what I've seen. People are getting overrun in their life by these challenges, and they're really going nowhere with God, even though their greatest passion is to live that supernatural life. If I've seen it once, I've seen it 1,000 times. And here's what it looks like. You get so excited to live a supernatural life. And you start to take steps. You get 3 steps, 4 steps. Hallelujah, I'm a supernatural. And then something happens and you go back 5. And then it takes you 5, 6 months to get back to 1. Hallelujah, I take supernatural steps. Watch this, here I go, supernatural. I pray for supernatural, 3 steps. Another challenge and you're back 6 steps now. Now it takes you a year to get back to the start. There are Christians who are spending their entire life not getting past 3. We sang, we go from glory to glory to glory. But what is actually in reality happening in church, we go from one glory and we stay there. We lose that glory, we come back and we start over again. And that's happening all the time in the church. All the time. There are very few, no, I'm not going to get negative on you. I'm not going to get negative. This is a good message. But there are very few people that have learned to get past those challenges so they can go to glory to glory to glory to glory and keep going from glory to glory. And those people hold conferences and thousands flock to them and say, to be like Heidi, you know, and we all vision what it looks like to go from glory to glory, but we don't do it. And then a few people do it who actually are able to get past the challenges and past the difficulties. Those are the ones who are able to go on from glory to glory. But the ones who are, for whatever, isn't this bizarre? The ones who are able to do it are called superstars in the kingdom. And they start having conferences to say it can be done. And the rest of us just watch it. And the cycle happens over and over and over again. Am I wrong? And it's not sin. It's not sin that for the most is stopping people. It's discouragement when a challenge came. It's the inability to get past that part where it got so discouraging. I'm talking about good people who want to live this supernatural life. I'm not talking to heathens. I'm not talking to people who don't want God. I'm talking to people who are excited about God. But they're so excited. But by Wednesday, more challenges came than they thought they could handle, and now they're stopped. And the problem is they just don't know how to get past that. Now let me say this. Challenges are a part of life. Christian or non-Christian, they're part of life. And even if it wasn't as a Christian, these challenges, when you learn to get past them, make you strong. They will come to you, and they will come to you throughout your life. Difficult circumstances will come at you, particularly, especially if, and you will know this, you stood at this altar and said, God, I surrender everything to you. And he doesn't doubt that. But the enemy says, okay, Tuesday I got a plan. Tuesday I got a plan, and it's not going to be to cause you to sin. I'm going to throw a big obstacle in your way, a big challenge that you're not going to know how to get around, and I'll discourage them. And by Thursday, they're so discouraged. And it wasn't sin. It was a challenge. It was a difficulty. It was a crisis. Ever look at me? If you're going to live a supernatural lifestyle, you need to understand something. Challenges are going to come your way. Do not go, what's going wrong with my world? Nothing's wrong with your world. That's just the way it's going to be. Say right now, that's the way it's going to be. There are going to be challenges. Don't be dismayed. Don't think, why does it always happen to me? It happens to everybody. You're no different. It's true. Just knowing that can actually take the pressure off. You're not abnormal. You're not weird. You haven't done something wrong and now you're getting punished. Have you ever noticed this? A lot of times people, when they get punished, they blame God. I mean, when they go through difficulty, they think that God's punishing them. Don't raise your hand if you've ever felt that way. You have a challenge, so the first thing will go on, introspection. Oh, I must have had a bad thought. Oh, I did this. Do you know what that tells me? You don't really know God. You don't know how good he is, and you don't know how much he loves you. If your go-to when challenges come is to be introspective and ask, why are you falling apart? You must be a bad person. You must be an awful Christian. If that's your go-to, it should tell you need to get to know God a bit more. Because that shouldn't be your go-to. I just want to say this. If you're going to be living a supernatural lifestyle, a revivalist lifestyle, not trying to encourage you with this, but just understand challenges will come. I'm not trying to prophesy it over you. They just will. Get used to it. Now, there's a way to get to a point, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, where those challenges don't slow you down, and they don't stop you. And because they don't stop you, they start to be getting farther and farther apart. Because the enemy knows he can't trip you up. And in life, you've kind of learned what to do. How many want to know? This is really, I never saw this before, but I'm reading through Psalms, and over, David says, I have a refuge place, and I run to it, and I hide away in it like a shelter. Read it yourself. Go back. It's probably twice a chapter he talks about a refuge in the Lord. And as I'm reading it, if you've ever read the Psalms, and Jenya pointed this out, David can mope a bit. He can mope a little bit because, he goes on to say, everybody's against me. The whole nation is turned on me. Everybody's cursing me. They're saying bad things. My very life is at jeopardy. He's not just hiding from bad emotions. He's hiding from arrows that are actually going to pierce his body. He is literally running for his life. And he's going all those things. And he's being attacked from without, attacked from within, and just completely destroyed. All around him, destruction. And then he says, but I run to my refuge. And I'm okay. I'm reading this thinking, if David could do this, and everything was against him, even his life, and I don't think probably any of you here have had your life being threatened, like literally threatened, if you walked out your door, where you physically even had to hide or someone might kill you. I don't know if you've ever been that way, but David was. And I'm reading this going, but then at the end of his thing, he goes, but God's my refuge. And I'm safe. And I'm going, He can actually go to this refuge and he's safe. And he just described the things he's going through. People cussing against him, wishing to kill him, nation against him, people backstabbing him, turning against him. And then he goes, but I run to my refuge and I'm safe. And I'm saying to myself, we have a refuge. I don't think we're taking it very seriously. We have a refuge. Psalm 91 says, to he who dwells, to he who pursues the presence of God, to he who wants revival, to he who wants to live a miraculous lifestyle, you have a refuge so that when life goes at you, you can run to the refuge, you can hide, you can strengthen yourself in the Lord, you can get strong, and you don't have to back up. And then when you're strong, you start going again, and you're going again, and you don't lose the ground. Now, here's the neat thing. And I kept reading, and then David says, I don't understand it, but God also started to exalt me. He made me king. Now people serve me. These people who ran and yelled at me, they're now coming to me and saying, I'm so wonderful. And he says, it's just beyond my mind. It blows me away that now the whole nation serves me. I have rich people coming to give me gifts. He's going, you know what it was? Watch this. Because David ran to his refuge, he got to his destiny. The issue is going on here. Here's what's at stake. Here is what's at stake. If you do not learn to go to the refuge place, if you do not learn how to hide within the refuge of God, I'm not saying hide away in the church. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm saying if you do not learn how to go to the place of refuge in the Lord, you'll never reach your destiny. Your destiny is at stake. There are some of you who meant to do some amazing, well, all of you are, but you not got past 2, and your years are going by. And your years are going by. How long do you want? How many years do you want to go by to find that you're too old to do what your destiny was all about? I'm reading through the Psalms. David says, "You've trained my hands for war." You don't see a lot of seniors off running to war. He said, "You've caused my arms to be able to bend bows of bronze," I think it was. Here's the deal. Here is the deal. If you learn about this refuge in the Lord, you can reach your destiny. And I know if I was to take a poll and say, how many want to reach your destiny? You would all put your hand up. I mean, yeah, Pastor, I think I don't really want to go there. I mean, So my question to you is, do you want to reach your destiny? Don't put your hands up. Because if you do, you're going to have to learn to get past challenges. You're going to have to learn to get past some challenges. You're going to have to learn to get past some difficult times in your life. You're going to have to learn to face a challenge, to walk through the challenge, and then to grow through it and go from glory to glory. And I pray, some weeks ago, I should say, I said, how many are tired of going from glory to glory to glory to depression to glory to glory? And everybody said, yes, the altars were flooded. But Burl got a dream saying people are still putting their gifts on the shelf. And it's because simply good people have not learned how to run to the refuge. So I'm going to share quickly about this refuge. I've never preached upon it ever, but I kind of said, okay, God, if there's a refuge for us, then, and if my destiny is at stake, I need to have a refuge. I need to be able to go to it. Are you with me this morning? How many are with me? How many have ever been discouraged and fallen back? Come on, let's admit it. You've been discouraged and you went back some steps. A few of you are brave enough. The rest of you just lied. So, my question is, how do you run to a refuge that cannot be seen with your eyes or found in a geographic location? How do you do that? I mean, this is not a refuge that we're talking about, So here's 4 things. Number 1, and you might want to take notes. The first thing about this refuge is understand this. It's a spiritual destination point. A spiritual destination point, okay? Understand that. The refuge of the Lord that we're speaking about is not a physical place. But you can still get there. It's still a destination that must be achieved and it must be reached. But it's not you cannot Google it. You can't go to Google Maps and there's the refuge of the Lord. I was on Google Maps the other day. I looked at it and I looked at right where our church was. They finally caught up now. Google Maps says dwelling place on it. I thought that was pretty cool. We just changed the name a year ago. Now Google Maps has got our name on it. You can find dwelling place on Google Maps, but you can't find the refuge of the Lord on Google Maps. Now, you need to understand, I'm going somewhere. This is a destination these eyes don't see, but it's as real, more real than trying to find a place on Google Maps that you can actually get a destination to. Listen to me. There is a place in God called the refuge where you can be safe. Where when the storm rages against you, when everything's going wrong, when crisis hits, when your finances are bad, when your health is at stake, you can have a refuge in God and actually be safe and have peace in your mind and not be a total mess. But that's not easy for most Christians because they've not learned how to go there. So I'm attempting to take you there. Understand, first of all, it's not a physical destination. It's a spiritual destination, but it's a place that you still must arrive at, okay? And I say that to you because so many people, they like to be so general with God. Okay, I'm going to have this, but they don't do anything about it. No, it's a place you have to go. If you want a refuge, then spiritually, you have to go there. Are you with me? Spiritually, you have to go there. It's not physical, but but while it's not a physical location, watch this, you still have to purpose to go there. It has to be a decision in your heart, and there has to be movement towards it. There must be an intent in your heart that, okay, I am going to go to the refuge. Now ever look at me. Sounds good until the crisis hits. What? Lost my job? What? Panic, fear, turmoil, accuse, swear, doubt, steal, whatever. The moment the challenge comes, there has to be something. Okay, I am going to the refuge. I'm on my way. Honestly, the moment you find out you're being challenged, that's when you have to decide, okay, I have a refuge I can go to. I am going there now. Are you with me? There has to be this immediate. You know, when the doctors gave you the word about Daniel, Jeremiah. Most of us, if the doctor gives you a word about your infant baby that's not quite born, fear can strike, terror can go through your mind can go crazy. Pretty soon the enemy's just ruling you. Immediately when something comes that would cause a challenge, you have to immediately say, okay, I have a refuge. I need to go there. There has to be this intent in my heart. I'm not going to get overcome by this, okay? Are you with me? Come on, everybody. When the challenge comes, you immediately have to say, I will not be overrun by this. We had this situation happen, and well, I'll just be honest. Christopher wasn't getting jobs because God had something special picked for him. And so he, you know, as a father or two children, you have to get a job. And I mean, you got to pay. I mean, you can only run so long on love. You know, pretty soon you got to pay your bills. And babies, you can't feed milk in love in the formula. They actually want formula. And so he got to throw out the resumes. He put them in St. Catharines. He put everything in the Niagara region. And then a while back, before some stuff came going, he had put stuff out back in London. And then there's a big firm with luscious money and big windows 16 floors up said, we want you to come down here. And we feel God called him here with us to the region. And the moment he said that, fear struck my heart. Because it was like almost disappointment. God, our grandchildren, and we want to be near them, and they're part of what God's doing, and it struck my heart. And I went to the gym that day, and I'm on the machine. Yes, I was on the machine. And I was sweating, and I had the worship on, and and I was fighting not to let tears just come. God, not again. Don't take our... Honest, I'm just being honest with you. I stood on there going, and immediately I said, I will not do that. I will not say, God, why? I will not say again. I will not question. I said, I will not ride that thing down the road. I might have done it in years gone past. I will not. And I said, I will not go down the road. I have a refuge. I have a shelter. And I said, this is going to stop now. And it did stop. And I said, I'm running to that place of hiding. And then God turned it around and said, and this week he got a job in St. Catharines from a firm which he didn't even know was there. Now, the moment the challenge comes, you have to say, I'm going there. I'm going there. Now, it's not a physical place you can go to, but there still must be within your heart a determination, a absolute intent. I'm going there. I will not go down the road that I used to go down when trouble came. I will not go down that road. And you need to understand two things that I want to share before I go to the next point. Sometimes it will take you time to get there, so don't go, how come I'm not there yet? Depends on the challenge. It might come back. You know, Christopher's job in the family moving is not like having a life-threatening challenge of a baby. That might be a little harder to wrestle around till you finally have peace. Much bigger challenge that you folks faced. Do not think because it's taken a little longer for me to get the peace I want that it's not going to happen. You still got to pursue and say, I am going there no matter how. I'm going to go to that place where I can walk in the shelter. If David said that there's a shelter, then I am going to go there. If he said there's a refuge, I will go there. I don't care what my circumstances look like. I will get there. And here's the second thing I want to share, and I'm going to go to the second thing, which is so important. You know what that means for you? Because the refuge is spiritual, not physical, you don't have to change marriages. You don't have to get a new home. You don't need to get a new job. You don't need to get new circumstances at all. Your refuge place doesn't depend on everything around you changing. If it does, everybody look at me. If it does, if your refuge depends on everything around you changing, my husband being this, my wife being that, you're no different than the world. Honestly, am I right? You're no different than the world. That's the way the world works. The world has peace when everything comes about the way they want it. Right? People who don't know they have a refuge in God, they do everything they can to find peace. And so if that has to happen for you, then you're no different than the world. Right? And I'll be honest, that's the way it's been with me. If I'm going to have peace, I want everything in my life to work the way I want it to work, and then I'll have peace. And I'm saying that as a pastor. And that's why a lot of people have constant anxiety. They live with anxiety issues and turmoil in their mind. That's why a lot of people are in places where they need to have something to bring them peace from a natural thing. They need things to work out for them. They need to have a pill. They need this. They need stuff. But when that becomes the answer for your peace and that becomes your shelter, it's very temporal, isn't it? It's no different than the world, and that's the way the world gets peace. They just have to get everything working for them. But I'm here to tell you today that your circumstances don't have to change. Your location, you don't have to move. You don't have to have because it's spiritual, it's a refuge you can run to, and you can be safe without anything around you changing. Second thing. So the first thing I understand if you're going to go to refuge is that there's a spiritual destination. You must be intent on getting there, and you can get there. Number two, set your focus. In order to get to the refuge of the Lord, you have to focus on it. Pastor Jed was doing his devotion on Thursday, and he was basically preaching my message right now. So I'm just going to play that tape. You have to take your eyes off the fear or the situation and set your focus on the place of refuge. Did you know when a challenge comes, when a difficulty comes your way, when a crisis comes your way, guess what? It's incredibly difficult to get your eyes off of it. Are you with me? Yeah. You know, it's so hard not to think about it. It's so difficult not to focus on it. Everything in you wants to look at it. Everything in you wants to play around with this. Everything in you wants to think about how awful it's been and rehearse it and go over and over and over the bad thing that's come upon you once again. Or rehearse this challenge over and over and over. Can I say this to you? You can't do that. Everybody look at me. You can't do that. You can't rehearse your issues. You can't go over it and over it and over it. You can't play it through your mind and through your mind and through your mind. How many want to know why? Do you know why you can't do that? Because first of all, you'll never get to your refuge. And there is a destination point when you can get there and you can actually be safe, although the world is going to hell all around you. But you can't do that. You can't put your eyes on the fear, on the situation, on the difficulty, and keep that as your focus. You cannot do that. Say, I cannot do that. I cannot do that anymore. I want you to say it with conviction, I cannot do that anymore. And I'll tell you why. You will always move toward that which you focus on. You will always move toward that which your eyes are on. If you ever ride a motorcycle, you'll understand how true that is. If you ride a motorcycle with a fairing or, my friend has a Harley Davidson, and one day we were at his house. He threw me the keys and said, take it for a ride. I was shocked out of my mind. Before he said anything, I jumped on. But his fairing, if you ever ride a Harley, the fairings are high. You see over the fairing. You can't even see the road in front of you. And I always thought, how do you see the road to ride and be safe? But you know what? It was not even an issue. You just look over the fairing, you keep your eyes ahead of you, and you're safe. You'll always move where your eyes are set. How many have ever been shoulder checking? You're driving, you're shoulder checking. Whoops, you just turn the car with you. You all of a sudden you're in the other lane shoulder checking, and you just about kill everybody in the car. You will move towards that which your eyes are set upon. So if your eyes are set on your problem, you're going to get closer to it, closer to it, closer to it. And not only will it become overwhelming in your sight, you'll start to empower it with your fear. What will happen is this. That issue that I see right here, when I keep my eyes, I will move closer and closer, and it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. It may not have changed, but because I focus on it so much, I get so close to it. That thing is overwhelming me now, and it'll kill me. And there's no power in focusing on my problem. But everything in you wants to do that. Right? Everything in you wants to rehearse what's going to happen if this thing plays out the way my mind wants to play it out. And the more you look at it, the closer you drop, because you will always move towards that which you focus on. Focusing on the trial or challenge will actually pull you into it like a tractor beam, and it'll swallow you like the black hole from Star Trek. It will pull you in, and it will swallow you, and it'll eat you up. Now, I don't want to hear an amen on that, but you could probably say that's true. Anybody who knows what I'm talking about, who is now on the other side of a challenge, you know that the longer you looked at it, the longer you focused on it and played it over and over and over again, it drew you into it. It was actually overwhelming you near death. Because pretty soon you're not just looking at the challenge. Now you've brought it in as if it's a reality. Okay? You've now come in agreement with it as though it's a reality in your life, and this is now what's going to happen to me. You've actually lined yourself up with the challenge. You've agreed that this challenge is going to happen to you. Stay with me. I'm not done with this one here. We live within the grasp of two realms, two realities. Paul said there's two realities. One is seen and one is unseen. But watch this. Everybody look at me. He said that which is seen with the eyes, it's temporary. That which is unseen, the spirit realm, it's eternal. Your problem, where is it? It's in which realm is it in? The seen realm, the temporary realm. Now, there's no answers there. That's why people are trying. That's why they have pills for anxiety. That's why they have doctors to try to, help your mind get better. That's why they have all this, because they're doing their best in this realm. That's why they have so many. That's why we have all sickness. That realm here is temporary. They're doing the very best they can to do what they can. You can't blame them. That's all they got to work with. But that's where your problem is coming from. So your problem is rooted there in this realm. Are you with me? As you engage with that problem, as you look at it and focus on it, you are drawn closer and closer and closer to the realm that has no answers and can only magnify the pain. And if it does help, it's temporary. Because what you see in the natural is temporary. What you see with the unseen is eternal. So I'm saying you need to set your focus not on the problem, because that puts you down in this realm. You need to set your eyes on that which is from the other realm, which is eternal, where their answers come from, where there's no sickness, where it's as it is in heaven, where in heaven there's no cancer. In heaven, there's no divorce. In heaven, there's no people without jobs. In heaven, there's no... You set your eyes on that where the answers are, and what you gaze upon, you move towards. Is this just me catching this revelation? Because it's good if I'm the only one getting it. But I wouldn't mind if you caught some too. If I gaze at that, it's going to draw me down. And there's no answers there, only to magnify the problem. If I gaze on that which is eternal, the kingdom, I have help I can draw from. I have help I can pull down. I'll tell you the end result of people who look down here. They get stupid. That's just the bottom line. They get stupid. They do stupid stuff. They fight with other people. They call names to other people. They get angry with people. They yell at God. They yell at their neighbor. They blame everybody else. They don't take any responsibility. It just gets crazy. It gets stupid. They leave their spouse. They burn their house down. They murder somebody. That's why the world's a mess, because they're looking and they're being drawn in. And what's temporary cannot bring an eternal answer to your situation. There's just no way. But here's the good news. Everybody stay with me. Paul said in Thessalonians, set your eyes on things above where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your eyes on things. You see, when you look up towards the eternal realm, and you've made that your reality, you can then go ahead and take of those things and bring them into your realm. Are you with me? Yes. You could actually, because you're looking at it, you're gazing at it, you can go ahead and just take hold of that thing by faith and bring it into your realm. And then people get jobs right there when you feared. The first outcome was that this was going to happen the way it's always happened. It's going to happen again. And somehow, because my eyes were there, I moved towards it. I got faith. I got strong. I didn't have to do stupid stuff. Here's the key. The outcome of your situation when you face it will depend on where you put your focus. I promise you. They tell you they're going to lay you off. Okay. I have a choice. I'm going to that refuge. I'm going to get safe. I'm not going to look at no job. I'm not going to look at what happens when I don't have a job. I'm going to look at where there's abundance. You just turn your focus. If you think this sounds too easy, try it. Try it. And don't give up. That's why I said the first one. It might take a little longer, but don't give up. It will happen. I'll tell you what happened with the situation with Christopher again, is that it didn't happen right away, but I got peace right away, though. The job didn't come right away, but I got peace right away. Before I stepped off of that treadmill, I got peace. I didn't lose that peace. I had it right away. Then a couple weeks later, the job came. You need to focus on eternal things, because there is where the answers lie. There's where the answer for your challenge can be taken hold of. There's where you're going to start to move close to, and there's where you can begin to take hold of and bring it into your realm. That's why David said, Psalm 16:8 said, I've set the Lord always before me, because my help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. I've set my eyes on the hills where my help comes from. In other words, I've set my eyes on eternal things. How many are hearing from the Lord this morning? Amen. I'm going to leave it at that. We're going to finish it up next week. Don't go back 4 steps until we're finished, though. What I gave you is even enough to start right now. Stand.